Welcome to another episode of the Filmmakers Life. My name is Joanne Butcher, and I interview filmmakers who are moving along with their successful filmmaking careers so that you can learn from the steps they've taken, from the mistakes they've made. And please like and subscribe to our channel. And today I'm going to introduce you to Peter Bailey. Peter is where are you? In the Virgin Islands? Oh, now we're
Yeah,
not. Oh,
so
I'm sorry, say it again because there was a
I'm
delay.
I'm in St. Thomas,
St.
Virgin Islands.
Thomas. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I have a very close friend in St. Thomas. I'll have to have you look in and check on
Oh,
that.
wonderful.
So there's an island-wide blackout, and
Yes,
somehow, even with that, Peter has managed to get on and be on the podcast with us.
yes,
So
yes, ma'am. I had to join you guys. I love what you guys are doing.
thank you so much. And I never start with a bio because we always start way at the beginning of your
Okay.
career. And my first question I like to ask always is, when did you first know that you were a filmmaker?
Hmm. Funny. Situations like these, Joanne. Growing up in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, it's a very interesting place because we're U.S. territory.
Yes.
So imagine life being on the fringes, right? You're
Hmm.
you're a part of the most powerful, prosperous country on the planet, but
Right.
within you don't know where you fit, right? Because we're a
Yeah.
territory, we can't vote for the president, but I'm an American citizen, but a little bit second class ish.
Right.
So that stirred every creative. It's always a question. It's always you grow up and you look at the world and you want to solve a problem. I mean, if you're a creative, it's most likely because it's something you saw. You either wanted you were impassioned about it, but it was an issue. It was a core issue you had, and you wanted it to be understood to yourself or to the larger world. So for me, I always wondered, where do we fit? Where do I belong? In the larger cosmos of being from the Virgin Islands, being in the Caribbean, being an American, but being Caribbean and in the middle of all of this. So that stirred my curiosity. I always felt like a lot of Virgin Islanders that we were I won't say forgotten, but we were misunderstood. We were invisible. So I
Yes.
found through storytelling, I would read a lot as a kid, and I never saw our story, right? You're coming up in the U.S. and you're reading about the Civil War, you're reading about the American Revolution and these things, but you don't know where you fit. So that's what drew me to filmmaking, being able to tell our story, my story, really.
I don't want to like put people in a hierarchy, but I have to say, Peter, that was the best answer to that question I've ever heard.
Thank you. It's real,
And
it's just real.
I
It's
always
real.
start with that question. And that was a wonderful answer because I would say for myself, I had a similar issue about being invisible, but that was more because I grew up in a very violent home. And so it was definitely wise for me to learn how to be invisible, right? So
Interesting.
I learned how to be invisible, and it's taken me, basically my whole life to find my voice, and now I help filmmakers get their voice out into the world.
Wow.
Right? So that's kind of how, and your version of invisibility was very, very different, although I grew up in the south of London and I
Mm,
felt outside because I wasn't in the center of London,
gotcha.
right? So there's like the center of London, then there's the outside, and then there's the next country, and then there's the Caribbean, and then there's not being able to vote, right? There's like all these
Yeah.
layers
And then
of
I'm a black man, and we're in the Virgin Islands is the largest. It's the only predominantly black U.S. territory. So then I come to the
is
U.S. So
that
it's the
right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
It's Puerto Rico, American
Yes,
Samoa.
yes.
It's a couple of us, but we're the only majority black territory.
Wow.
So then you enter race into the equation. So then
Yes,
there's that issue. So it's
yes.
layers to it. Layers to it.
Layers and layers and
Mm-hmm.
layers.
Hmm.
And so you obviously you realize the power of storytelling.
Indeed, indeed, because I wasn't a rich kid. I wasn't born into a wealthy family, so I always wanted to. I know there was an issue, right? Because I think the most important driving force in life is why.
Mm,
So I want to make a change. I want things to be different, but I don't have the money or the political, family connection to change things. And I discovered through writing, through storytelling, man, the power of the pen. I always say this, Joanne. I don't think we all hate each other. We just don't know each other.
right.
So for storytellers, we make the world more connected, right? You may not know a person from the Virgin Islands, but once I share my story, you're going to find certain commonalities, and that draws us t- together, basically.
So what was your first experience of telling stories?
Man, this sounds, I don't know, cheesy, but my neighborhood, it was the 80s. Like when you came to the Brad University screening, um, the crack epidemic hit. And oddly enough, that came to the islands. So I looked around my community and things were happening. So, a lot of creatives have these very, self-grandiose ideas. Oh, I became a writer because the love of prose. No, no. I started writing because I had to get all of that out of my head. It was my therapy. It was the way I understood the world. So I would write everywhere. I remember just writing. If it was on a wall somewhere, I was always writing. And I went to college. I went to the
When
University of,
when one second when you talked about the way crack arrived, because
yes.
I'm half Trinidadian, and
My
when
father's from Trinidad.
right that
Yeah,
my there was a moment, I can't remember which year it was, but there was a moment where I realized, oh, crime has arrived in Trinidad, drugs have
yes,
arrived in Trinidad, and it
yes,
seemed like it wasn't there before, and then one day it was
yes,
there.
yes.
And I can't remember what date that was, but it could have been the same date. Um, but so you said crack arrived in the islands,
Hmm. Hmm.
and how did that impact you?
It impacted me to this day. My two best friends got caught up in the life, and I remember arguing with them. It's like, nah, man, you guys can't do this. And it's funny, Joanne. I didn't elaborate that night, but one of them was killed.
Wow.
It's funny because we had stopped talking. I said, bro, if you continue doing this, we can't talk anymore. And I won't say I regret it to this day, but I went to college and he called me and said, bro, I'm done. I made it. I'm out the life. And the funny part is because of me, he was inspired to enroll at Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island. And I think it was the first month he was there, he got into altercation and he got stabbed. And I
Wow.
remember one of my first powerful essays I wrote. I remember getting a call, and one of my guys was like, "Yo, you need to come up here to Rhode Island." I'm in Delaware at the time, and it's just odd how it happened because I'm in Delaware and I'm in this 98% white upper middle class university. So
Right.
oddly enough, I was playing bear pong. That's a game you played in college where you throw the ping pong in the bear cups. So I'm in this whole other cultural reality.
Right.
And one of our mutual friends called and said, "Man, you need to come up here because Beam, that was his name, Ronaldo was asking for you." I said, "What you mean asking for me?" And he was like, "He got stabbed." And Ronaldo was always a fun, he was always pulling stunts, jokes. So I thought it was a joke. Another friend of mine had called and said, "Man, you need to come up here. He's on a machine." I said, "He's on a machine." So Joanne, it was like I want to say 1 in the morning. I literally drove from Delaware in a snowstorm all the way to Providence, Rhode Island. I
Wow.
stopped in Queens to get my cousin, and we rode up there. And I get to the hospital, and I knew it was real. I saw everybody outside in the lobby, and I go upstairs to his room. I've never shared this story, and he was hooked up to the machine,
Wow.
and I'll never forget that. Never forget that. And that evening, I had told his family, don't pull the plug because when you're on a ventilator.
Right. Right.
And I think that Monday they pulled it,
Wow.
and I still have that essay. I wrote about that, just the experience of that.
Right.
And that was one of the most defining things I wrote. And then while being in college, I took a class, Introduction to D.H. Lawrence.
Wow.
Yeah, D.H. Lawrence. And I was very
It's
drawn to
about
his,
as far away from that
yeah,
story as you can
yeah,
get, right?
I
That's
know. But it all ties in. I was drawn to his rebellious nature of the status
mm,
quo,
mm,
being from the way I came up. And I showed the professor that essay I wrote about my friend. And there was some other essays I wrote. And he said, "Man, you're a writer. You should think about being a journalist." And at the time, Joanne, when you're coming from a working class environment in the Caribbean, and you get an opportunity to go to an American university, you better either be a doctor, an engineer, or lawyer. In other words, secure your future. So my people are like, "You're gonna do what? You're gonna write? You're gonna make films?" Oh, this man, he's lost his mind. And that's what ushered me in this whole thing we call storytelling. The
wow.
funny part, though, Joanne, was my story's always the guy that wants to go right there. But some reason I was gotta go the long route. So I ended up being a journalist because I eventually wanted to turn my
Yes.
written work into film and the visual platform.
Mm,
But,
mm.
being a kid without means, most of my peers that wanted to do that, they went to film school, right? You go to
Uh-huh.
take your BA, then you go to NYU. I
Yes.
couldn't do that. I had to go get a job.
Yes.
So that's how I ended up being a journalist. I literally did not want to be a newspaper. I literally did not want to be a newspaper. I always wanted to make films. But I spent years at starting at the Village Voice.
That's so
Yeah. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, that
In life you gotta go the long route sometimes. I
yes,
tell kids
yes,
that all
yes.
the time. You
My
gotta yeah.
my mother,
Yeah.
when I was a teenager, my mother said, you're a good writer. I think you should be a journalist. And I said, no,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be talented to do that.
Yeah, yeah. You have to
Yeah.
have patience.
But I
Yeah.
feel it's so sad that I would say such a thing that it
Mm.
never crossed my mind I might be talented.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I didn't have, and but for you got somebody, one person said to you, "Oh, you're really good," and you went with it. I think that's great.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Everybody needs
Professor
that
yeah,
encouragement.
Professor Janice Jackson at University of
Wow.
Delaware. He just passed actually recently. And Professor McKay Jenkins. They were like, "Peter, you need to take the journalism." Like, I didn't know I didn't know what a journalist was. Like I said, you're coming from this environment.
Yes.
You get an opportunity to go to college, go get
Yes.
a job, go
Yes.
you go major in something where you're gonna have a stable job, not
Right.
the creative arts. Caribbean people, when even to this day, when you think creative arts, it's like it's not taken seriously as yet, right?
Mm.
So I jumped. I went to the Village Voice. And then I went to
Wow.
Newsday. I was covering crime at Newsday, which oddly enough, I would tell people the way God works, the best to me, if you look at filmmaking, the foundation is writing. The foundation of everything we do is
Absolutely.
writing.
Absolutely.
So I always say, if you look at the greatest, real great, like The Wire on HBO,
Oh,
that was David Simon, right? He was a
yes.
Baltimore Sun reporter. So he
Yes.
basically turned his crime stories into the wire. So I say all the time, if you can make the transition from hardcore traditional journalism to film, you're going to be a rock star because you have the nuts and bolts of character development and story.
Yes. And
I think the
story.
issue with a lot of current filmmakers, I don't want to downplay cinematography, right? But I have a film academy for students in the Virgin Islands, and we don't even touch a camera for the first semester. We don't even touch a camera
Mm.
because it's all about story.
Yes.
I mean, even with the modern technology, sad to say, my cinematographers, the process of capturing images is kind of getting easier. I don't want to say it like that, but let's be honest. These iPhones now have a cinematic feature, right?
Yes.
So, but storytelling, knowing story and story development, that's the key to great filmmaking. So oddly enough, when I went on this whole nother trajectory of being literally, I went from the Village Voice, after the Village Voice to Newsweek, then Newsweek to Time Magazine, then the Miami Herald. So it was all of this preparation to understand story.
Yes,
Understand story. And then when Trick Daddy asked me to write his book, then now I got to write a book. So now that's long
Wait a
form
minute. How do you go from
I know.
I'm always this sort of really annoying person in the interview. I'm like, could we just go back a little bit?
Not
Because
a problem. I have a very interesting story.
so now
Trick Daddy,
I remember I thought the Village Voice was the coolest thing out.
Oh my God, yes, it was. Yes, when I got there, let me tell you something. How that happened. Wayne Barrett, I had applied for the fellowship, and Wayne Barrett calls me. Man, I'm on cloud 9 because if
Wow.
those guys that don't know, you know, we're coming to left wing. I don't even like that word, but alternative power to the people journalism.
Yep.
The Village Voice was king.
The Village
So
Voice.
if you were like an advocacy journalist, like people who really want to write to change the world, your dream was the Village Voice.
Absolutely.
So Wayne Barrett calls me, and I'm like, "Is Wayne Barrett?" I'm in my dorm at Delaware. I'm like, "Yo, for real?" He's like, "Yeah, man. I was reading your stuff. I don't know what it is about you, but I kind of like you. So I want to give you this opportunity. Do you have a place to live?" Joanne, I had nowhere to live. Joanne, I had nowhere to live. I had no money, nothing. I lied and told him, "Yes, sir. I got a whole place in Manhattan. You know, I got everything. You got to worry about me, sir. I just honored to work with you." Yeah. And I took the opportunity. There was a family friend, my mother's friend, was a living maid for this lady in New Jersey. So she said, "Peter, I'll go live with the lady, and you can stay in my little basement apartment in Far Rockaway, Queens."
Wow.
For you guys who are
I
not,
know that's far. I know that's
if
far.
you are not familiar with Far Rockaway, Queens, let's just say Far Rockaway is a neighborhood in New York City where I think like somebody just forgot about it, left it to rot to just, it was, that place was, oh my God. I wish to this day they could fix the place, but I literally used to catch that A train from Mott Avenue all the way to Cooper Square, where the Village Voice was in the Village, right? But the unique thing, Joanne, is that if people who are familiar with New York City, that A train, it traverses every demographic,
right,
every socio-economic reality.
yes.
So you start on Mott Avenue, let's just say with killers, with streets,
Right.
and then you start to get the Manhattan, the Wall Street crowd. So all of that, unbeknownst to me, was developing me as a storyteller.
Right.
Yeah. That started me, the Village Voice.
Village Voice, amazing. And
Village Voice.
then somehow, I don't know, but somehow you ended up at the Miami Herald.
Yeah, Don Force was the editor at The Voice. He calls me in his office. He said, "Man, what do you want to do after this?" I said, "Well, I need to get a writing job." So I had applied at Newsday, and I want to tell young people this. Yes, stay the course, work hard, but a lot of this thing in life is about relationships. It's about relationships, being likable, and people opening a door. You know, I know some amazingly talented people, but they can't catch a break because they don't understand it's about human beings and how you connect with people.
Right.
So Don took a liking to me. I had applied at Newsday. They ignored me. I said, "But Don, don't worry about it." He calls their head up there. I says, "Man, I got a young man in here. He said he gave an application and you denied him." Man, it was Walter Middlebrook. Walter, no, Don, no, it's all, send him over here. And that's how I got the Newsday. I was a crime reporter at Newsday. And then I moved from Newsday to Newsweek magazine. After Newsweek, I moved to Time magazine. The issue with that was at time it got sticky because I'm ambitious. I'm writing. And for people that don't understand the magazine world, it's the most cushy, amazing life. You have a driver, expense account, but you don't get to write. So at the major magazines, you would be a reporter, you would go write the story, and then you give it to a senior writer. I wasn't having that. No, and they'll give you a little tagline. So I kept getting into trouble because there was an editor there that liked me. So I would give him my story. The magazine, and my byline is in the magazine. The senior writers went crazy. Man, who's this young little buck thinks he could get a byline in Time magazine? So needless to say, I had to go shop. I had to keep moving. I had to keep moving because I want to be a writer.
Yes.
Because magazines, there's a tone, there's a style. You don't get to be creative. So the Miami Herald called, and my father had Alzheimer's. And I was like, this is great because I get to be closer to the islands if I take the Miami Herald job.
Yep.
And that's how I got to the Miami Herald. And I tell people that Miami is a writer's dream. It's a storyteller's dream. As you know, the characters.
I'm right here in Miami.
The characters, and I will say this too in Miami, it is to me the microcosm of what America is going to start to look like.
Yes,
right?
yes.
New York City is a place where you come to New York, but you assimilate into New York, not Miami. Miami, you're from Haiti, you got Little Haiti, Little Havana, Little Brazil.
My Veve, my Haitian Veve behind me.
There you go. There you go. So the Herald gave me an opportunity to just go write. So I was an education writer at the Miami Herald. So I ended up being in the schools, doing a lot of enterprise reporting. So one will ask, well, Peter, how the film stuff happen? So here's what happened. And I could take credit for this. This was right around the time when newspapers started, the internet started to kind of creep in. But I was like, guys, we need to do visual. So I was one of the first reporters at a mainstream newspaper to bring in cameras, to start a multimedia. Yeah, I started the multimedia department at the Herald. So with all my stories, I would also have it filmed, and then we started doing radio. So I started doing these multimedia stories.
Oh, wow.
That's how that whole thing,
Peter,
and then eventually, yeah.
I know you're on the phone, so this is kind of completely random, but I just saw this film and I just put it in the chat and I'll send it to you. It was made in 1950 called Shakedown.
Okay.
And I found out about this movie from a Reddit post the other day. It's one of the best films I've ever seen. And it's about a photographer at a newspaper. And it opens with him trying to get a job, trying to talk his way into a job at a newspaper.
Yeah.
And it's just one of the best films I've ever seen. It's a real noir film. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm probably going to watch it again. But I want to remake this movie. And it's just, you're telling me all these stories, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to
No, Joanne, I get upset because I tell people all the time, the life of a journalist, think about, it's an honor, right? Because you get invited into people's narratives in very intimate spaces.
Yes.
And you learn a lot about a lot of things. Like the stories I've covered the story in Queens. It was a Korean couple, and their culture, love is to the death. So it was a rich girl, and the boy was poor. And he went off the war, they came back, the family didn't want, and they killed themselves. They literally went in the car, put the windows up, and committed suicide. Wow. And I was tasked with covering that funeral and being close to the family. Just all these different stories, right?
Yes. There's a level of intimacy. There's a level of intimacy.
You have to be a citizen of the world to be a journalist. And oddly enough, while writing for the Herald, I made a name covering the Black community in a way it wasn't covered before. Sadly, in mainstream media, Black people are caricatures.
Right.
If you pick up the paper, we're either robbers, killers, gangsters, or hip hoppers or rappers, which I detest because Black life is layered. We're not all put here to entertain and make music or crack jokes, right? So, oddly enough, I'm at the Herald, and one of my cousins is locked up. And I didn't realize I'm beginning to get a name in the prison. Because, like, who's this Black guy at the Herald that writing about Black Miami without the bank robbers? Like I was
Uh-huh.
doing feature stories from the neighborhood about like one series I did was about it was about drugs, but it was about this guy. He was a former addict, changed his life. He became a volunteer at the Miami Rescue Mission, right?
Uh-huh.
But because he couldn't afford to live in a nice neighborhood, his battle was he's only can afford to live in a neighborhood where the drugs are.
Where the drugs are, yeah.
So the
Mhm.
story was about how does he battle that? And then
Right.
I started the poverty beat at the Miami Herald. I'll
Oh,
give you a bit of trivia. Why people ask, why aren't poor people covered in media? Why? Because the media is a business, right? So newspapers thrive on ad revenue. Poor
right.
people don't buy anything.
Right.
That's why you see very few stories about the homeless.
And
Oddly
and
enough,
because brands don't want to be associated with
ah,
poverty.
exactly,
They want to
exactly,
be associated with wealth and success. And
exactly. So oddly enough, my cousins are reading my stories. All these guys in the prisons are reading my stories. So Trick Daddy and his people called me. Yeah, they were like, man, he reads your stuff. He's a big fan of your work. Would you consider
wow.
writing his book? So I tell people this all the time, my own prejudices. I didn't even think he really read like that, but I go on this journey. And Joanne, the beauty of that was the hell was that's right around the time all the buyouts were happening. Like everyone was taking a buyout. All this, remember the paper was going down. Like
Oh
it
yeah, 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 yeah.
yes, all the
Mhm.
buyouts. At the Herald, I think what half of the staff has been gutted. So I got this opportunity with Trick Daddy and went with him and wrote that book. And yeah, that began my real foray into film because after writing that book, I said, I want to do a docu-series interviewing urban entertainers, but in a more human light. And that's how NiteCap started, and that's how the film stuff started.
So was Trick Daddy a Miami rapper? Was he? Oh, so he
Joanne,
grew
you're
up.
gonna get in trouble. Joanne, you're gonna get
I
in
know,
trouble
I
for
know, I
even
know.
saying that. Trick Daddy. So he's okay. So you have Uncle Luke.
Uncle
Trick
Luke.
Daddy's yeah. So Luke
This is
started.
this
So
is
Trick
this is
is
weird. My closest rap claim to fame is I used to be friends with Luke's father.
oh okay. You're telling her your age, Joanne. So Trick Daddy came from Luke. He was signed by Luke, and Trick is
Wow.
arguably the greatest. He's the face of hip hop from Miami, from Florida, in the South.
I
In the
think
South,
I had already left, and so Trick
probably
Daddy got famous,
yes.
and so I
This
just know him as being
This
national,
was
not
like
as
the
being
'90s. Yes, he was
yes,
after Luke. So Trick was the
yes.
one that put Miami's hip hop scene on a
Uh-huh,
national level. So it's
uh-huh.
very interesting that I'm
I
in
thought that was
college.
Luke, so I
Well, no, Luke was first,
yes.
but then Trick took it further. Trick
Uh-huh.
made it. He was a generation after Luke.
After, yeah.
So yeah, Luke, Trick it's crazy because I'm in college listening to this guy's music. And then
Uh,
I'm with him writing this book,
wow.
and he opened a lot of doors for me. He opened a lot of doors for me.
Wow.
That's actually
And
what led to the Miami Kingpins series. Yeah.
well, yeah, but the Trick Daddy story, did he have as part of his story growing up poor and having that sort
Yes.
of decision about do I go into the drug life, or do I
Yes.
did
Yes.
he have that was part of
He was
his
actually in the life. He
he
was
was
also a former cocaine cowboy, and
okay.
he like a lot of guys from that era. Music was just the next opportunity. It was okay. I don't want to sell drugs, but I got to make money. So hip hop became that opportunity. So
Yeah.
Trig, all those guys are former drug dealers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so common. And when people are poor and growing up in a ghetto, and I mean, what other opportunities are there?
Gotta survive. It's America is a doozy. America. I have a saying about America: do as I say, not as I do.
Ooh, that's good.
I
I
mean,
I
if you
say
if you
as
think about,
an English person, I
Mhm.
say you've never seen racism until you get to America.
Oh, no doubt about it. I told someone I was introduced to racism in the U.S. because I'm from a majority black place. You know, I
Right,
tell people all the
right,
time, being
right.
in the Caribbean, it may not be perfect, but my images of power look like me. So
Yeah,
I didn't have a concept of inferiority.
right,
And I think when I first moved to the mainland, it was unsettling for a lot of people. Like, I never grew up with this idea that I'm
right,
second to anything.
right, right,
So
right, right.
I was in college. I remember my African American peers were like, Peter, man, you just be in the class saying stuff. I remember one time this professor, I don't know what grand idea he had, but we're in, I think it was biblical or English classical literature course. And it's like 300 students. And he decides to show a movie based on the story of Job in the Bible. So in this movie, as you know, Job was persecuted. The movie's about this like wealthy Wall Street white guy that's taking his wife to dinner and gets lost in Compton and gets robbed by black people. So I decided to pull the plug on the whole thing and plug this. So that, I was just not tolerant to that type of stuff, right? And if you look at my work is a lot like that. In my work, no one is a victim. Like
Mm.
in my work, black people are heroes and the villain. You know,
Uh-huh.
I think
Right.
that's how you empower yourself. You know, I think
Yeah, yeah,
for too long, the narrative from people of color is always that there's someone controlling. They need to be saved by someone, and someone is doing them. No, I want to throw that off. I
yeah,
know
yeah.
there's problems out here, but my ethos isn't socialized to the American way per se.
Right,
So that
right,
my
right.
work is a little bit different in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. I love that though. I love the concept that you can be heroes and you can be villains. That's
You have to be, Joanne, because if I keep telling kids that their entire reality is contingent upon someone else, that's no power.
right. That's right. That's
It's
right.
no power.
So this like long going around.
Running around.
So you wrote the
Running
book about Trick Daddy, you published that book. How
around.
did the how and it sounds like you were already at the Herald, you were doing some sort of media creative.
The seeds were planted,
Yes,
and I
yes.
didn't realize it back then.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I would
Right.
do these short docs to accompany my stories. So
Yes.
after I leave the Herald, I launched NiteCap, which people call it today a podcast. But back then it was really me doing these very in-depth interviews with different entertainers. And it did
Mm.
very, very, very well. So that planted the seeds. But in the Trick Daddy book, there's several chapters about the Kingpins from it,
Uh-huh.
literally. And eventually you saw Miami Kingpins that came about. You know, it's interesting though, because Kingpins didn't happen. What really launched my film career was the movies in the Caribbean, where
Oh, oh,
yeah,
I didn't know about that part.
it was the films in the Caribbean. So in 2017, I've been coming back and forth to basically do a lot of work with the kids and the young people, because Joanne, I always said in life, if when I was a kid, if I could have found somebody like me to come to speak to me, it'd have been a dream.
Right,
So I've
right, right,
always lived this life because I believe we're put here to add, right? I believe we're put on this planet to give more than we take. I think that's the essence of life. I think we're dying as a society because those that are leading the world are just taking. They're just taking. They're not adding. So I said, if I ever make it, I'm going to form a bridge for opportunity to the kids in my home.
nice.
I come home a lot. So in one of those trips, Hurricanes Irma and Maria hit, and
Oh,
I got stuck here, and we lost houses. It destroyed everything.
right.
And I tell people, your greatest ascension in life, it usually is going to derive from your greatest pain and how you
Hmm.
deal with it.
Hmm.
So this is national news. After those hurricanes, America just dropped the ball on us. I don't know if you were following, but that's when Donald Trump went in the
Oh,
news and said he didn't even know that we were part of America.
right, right, right.
So we were down here literally just surviving with each other. And what really hurt me was that as a journalist, we didn't get any coverage. So
Right.
for me, that was a defining moment. Like, wow, I spent all these years giving, people stories in the U.S. And now, so I decided to basically tell the story myself. So I
We're back
produced
to this question of invisibility that you
in
started with.
Joanne, I'm so happy you said that. Can you imagine that feeling? Now I'm a
Yeah.
grown man. And I'm
Yes.
like, here we go again. But this
Wow.
time I'm gonna do something about it. So I produced 3 documentaries called Paradise Discovered, which is a play on words. Because I got very upset that every news article was about, oh my God, the vacation is gone. So I
Oh,
realized in these islands, no one really sees us.
right. Right.
So those films arguably are the first time in VI history that the film is about us as a people, who we are.
Right.
And the films did well. And I toured. I went everywhere. Like 3 years, I was on tour everywhere. And
In the Caribbean or in the
in the
US as well?
Caribbean, in Canada, throughout the
Uh-huh.
U.S.
Uh-huh.
I was
Uh-huh.
at Brown University. I was like at colleges every other month because
Right.
my vision was, if the adults don't got any common sense, let's get to the kids, because the
Yes.
kids, they're gonna learn about, and
Right.
did well. So all my guys from Miami was like, "What? Peter's making movies now? Well, he has to do the Kingpins," and that's how the Kingpins occurred.
Well, I think the Caribbean documentaries are so important because and I talk about this with my clients all the time that
Mm-hmm.
like I had this one client, she was making a movie about her uncle, who was a basketball coach and famous basketball player in what state was it? Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
So uh and she was excited to make a movie about her uncle, but what she didn't realize is that, and I told her about this before it actually happened to her, when people are sitting down and they're going to see themselves on screen for the very first time, it creates the most massive shift in
It
people.
does. It does. It does.
And so for you to be making these films about the Virgin Island, about Virgin Islanders, and for people to see themselves on screen, it happened to me um,
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and it was a filmmaker friend of mine. He's died now, Sergio Herald, and it was in Spanish, and but it was about Afro-Cuban history, and it showed my ancestors, even though they were Cuban and they were Spanish speaking, but I had never seen my ancestors on a
Yeah.
film before.
It's magical. It's
And
magical.
and I was supposed to be the MC doing a Q&A afterwards, and I couldn't speak.
It's magical.
I couldn't speak.
Magical.
And I went to Sergio the next day to apologize. And because we really hadn't met before, and I'd never been speechless before. And he gave me a reading list, and I had a year of reading about comparative slavery.
That's heavy.
Mhm.
Whew.
He put
Heavy.
me on a course of reading about comparative slavery and how all the different islands and the Caribbean had different notions of slavery,
Yeah.
and it was all different from in the US. In
Yeah.
Cuba, they didn't believe in having one black person alive when
Mm.
slavery was abolished.
Wow.
So they worked their slaves to death. They worked them 22, 23 hours a day. They only survived 2 years or so,
Oh my
and they
God.
died. So there,
Wow.
and each country and each colonizer has different ideas of how slavery works. And so anyway,
Mm.
he put me on a reading course.
Mm. Mm.
But yeah, I was rendered speechless by seeing my history on, and
Yeah.
it wasn't even fully Trinidadian. It was Cuban, but still, and it's such a profound thing for people to see themselves.
No, Joanne, it was amazing because you got to think about it. We have elders, and why I did that film is because like I said, I got offended. I got very upset. I got a mother. She's 80 something years old, and I felt like my elders are powerful, and
Yes.
when they die, and that's why I wanted to tell people on this interview. This is just not art. I guess I've done my thing, so I'm not of the vein. I'm not the guy who's trying to get exposed. Um, I'm of the vein. This is purpose driven God's work. So I like to tell creators when they see their work is not getting to the light of day, I tell them maybe it's because the universe knows you're selfish. And the universe knows you only want this thing in the air so you can walk the red carpet and take your pictures and oh my God, my art is being seen. I don't do that for that, Joanne. I would not have made these movies. When I do what I do, I basically immortalize my community. When these elders are gone, we're making them live forever.
Yes.
In the manner of which they need to be seen.
Yes.
Not some guy on a travel channel running around like my people on the circus. Oh, you want to look at the food? Look at the little locals.
Yeah.
No.
Look at the palm trees. Look at the palm trees.
This is so for me. It's funny you say that. When we screened that film and we saw the elders, because in every film I do, I always make sure there's a large contingent of elders. Because I think the issue with society today is this intergenerational shift. And I respect your millennials and your Gen Zs, but I'm kind of get over yourselves. Get over yourselves. Because wisdom, you can't teach it. No, you can't. You got to live it. A lot of things I know, a lot of things I've done in my life, I can't teach you how to do it. You got to go through it. So whereas the younger generation has these tools, a lot of them lack the common sense wisdom that comes with age and experience. Yes. And it was important for me in every film. I always have young people and I have elders. So it's an education because when they die, their jewels and wisdoms fade. And I understand the tech stuff, but I'm sorry. The magic that my mother taught me after the hurricanes, how to survive, how to make a fire putting 3 stones. No AI can teach me that, you know, and no AI can teach me how to connect with my elders. Right. So when you said that, it struck a chord because I sat in the theater and they're looking at the screen like, you know, these people in their 80s and 70s are like, it was like euphoria for them. It was magical. Yes. I love it.
It's magical.
I love it. I love it.
Wow. And so then somehow you ended up being I think invited to make Miami Kingpins. Is that right?
It's funny. They've been wanting me to do that for years. Oh. But I didn't want to touch the drug dealer stuff. You know, I have an issue where America, pop culture loves they love the worst stories from black people, man. You know, I go to some Hollywood people. I say, man, there's this black guy in Singapore that has come up with this cure for cancer. Everybody's like, what? You know, oh, the black bank robber, the dope boy. Oh, yeah. So I said, all right. But if I do this, we're going to do it different. We're not going to do the caricature and the gimmick. We're going to flip it. So Ted Lucas, the founder of Slip and Slide Records, Rick Ross and these guys, they were like, so I said, let's do this. And they gave me the unique opportunity of telling the story in a real way, not a gimmick way. And if anybody knows Miami,
the difference. What do you consider the difference between a real, the real way of telling about the Miami Kingpins, or the real way of
the real way? These guys are human beings, not some guy with big chains with 20 women driving a big car.
Right.
They're actually human beings with kids and families. They're actually human beings who sometimes selling this thing and hate themselves for selling it. Because if you think some people, you know, you're selling. Look, some of these guys are sociopaths, just greedy bastards, right? But some of them are like, yo, I know this is wrong, you know? And then you just I tell people all the time, a drug dealer is just as sick as the addict. They're both an addict.
Right.
One is an addict to money. Right. One is an addict to the dope, but everybody's getting hurt.
Yes.
And how we also told the story was, you know, I was speaking to Mickey Monday the other day. That's why he loves the series, because let's be honest. Dope made Miami what it is, but the black communities are still wasteland.
Right.
Why did not
all that money pouring in?
No, it went to Brickell. I mean, there's prosecutors, there's judges who made a whole lot of money either defending these guys or persecuting them. Right? So I think I had a call coming in. But so it's the thing about the Kingpins. When you move to Miami, you hear about convertible bird. you hear about Bo Diddley, even in the hip hop world. Like if you
Mhm.
look at pop culture, that's really what we want to tie in. We want to tie in how this Miami story, how this street story affected larger pop culture. When you see suburban kids in Aventura saying certain words, dressing certain ways, where do you think they got that from? You know? So somehow America has a way of taking black genius and minimalizing it, right? Right? The
Yes.
white guy on Wall Street, Bernie Madoff, oh, it's white collar crime. He's a genius, right? Convertible Burt on the corner in Liberty City, oh, he's a thug.
Right.
No, they both have a certain business acumen, right?
Hmm.
So we
Hmm.
wanted to tie in and he wanted to tell us the history. And I was so happy we got to talk about the McDuffie riots because
Uh-huh.
a lot of times in black storytelling, you see the action, but you don't know the why. We
Right.
wanted to
Can you
give
tell everybody
context.
what the McDuffie riots were? Because not
Okay,
everybody's
so
from Miami.
the McDuffie riots was Rodney King before Rodney King.
Right. Hmm.
Um, Arthur McDuffie was just riding his motorcycle, and it was flashy. And at the time, they don't want to see black guys with stuff that's flashy. So some cops pulled him over and beat him to death. One cop sat on top of him, took his helmet, and crushed his skull. What happened next was the McDuffie riots, where I think it was the first time, one of the first times, actually, I think it was the first time since Rosewood and the Nat Turner Rebellion, where black people just started targeting and killing white people out
And
of rage.
when the verdict came down
Yes,
that
the verdict came
the
down. They
police
were acquitted,
officers were acquitted. Yes.
acquitted,
And
and
that was
Miami
the
went.
right.
It descended into hell. So basically, people started burning down everything. White people who were just traveling through the neighborhood, whether they were there to shortcut, buy whatever, they got killed. Like they just started attacking. It was bedlam, and it resulted in millions of dollars. We it could arguably say that inner city Miami never recovered from the McDuffie riot.
Mm.
No, they
Mm.
didn't recover.
Mm.
One of the, black people were supposed to get certain benefits and different things, but what happened with the businesses being destroyed, the
Right.
drug game came in. There was a wasteland of economic,
Right.
up, and that's what preceded the drugs trade in Miami. This wasteland of
Oh,
economic opportunity, basically.
yes. The when I saw the Kingpins series, I was trying to remember because it turns out the McDuffie riots were in 1980, and I
Yes.
came to Miami in 1984.
Oh, right after. Okay. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And so I heard about McDuffie, but when I left England in 1984, well, I had spent a year in Spain, so
Mm.
1983 maybe I left England. But I, in college, participated in protests that turned into riots
Wow.
about racist violence from the police in England.
Oh, wow.
And when I was at University of Warwick and we were on a march and we used to chant Bristol, Brixton, Coventry next. So Coventry was right next to the university, and these
Wow.
were urban cities, you know. And we were on a very peaceful march, and we got attacked by skinheads, and we don't use the term white supremacists in England, but skinheads and
Hmm.
racists, and the police were
Interesting.
kind of protecting them from us,
Wow.
right? Those were the experiences I had, and trying to escape from having bricks thrown at us and stuff like that. So I was participating in these 1980s protests that turned into riots all over England, and then I moved to Miami, and then there were riots in Miami. And I was
Yeah.
living at the University of Miami graduate student housing, and Coconut Grove was across the US 1. And there were riots, and it was over a similar acquittal in 1984. And what I saw was the difference between England and America, which was the police only had to block off two roads. to completely be able to shut down Coconut Grove or the Black
Interesting.
Grove, I should say, the Black
Yeah, the
Grove.
Black Grove. Yeah, the
Right.
Black Grove.
And we didn't have that in England. We don't have in England places where there's this, and that's something that came up in Miami Kingpins, but and other historical documentaries I've seen about America, and particularly in Miami, where the cities were built in a way that could segregate the Black population
Oh yes. Yeah.
so completely, and it still
There
exists to
was a
this day.
wall, the Liberty City Wall that
Mm,
divided blacks and whites. America is a doozy. Yes,
yeah,
there was a
America,
wall. Yeah, it's a doozy.
and it's so invisible to people,
Hmm.
how that segregation is conducted.
But
And
that's how, if you look at Chicago, public housing was a social experiment that was proven to be destructive. So in
mhm,
Chicago, all those high rises on the South Side, what happened? They voted, okay, black people deserve to live where we live, but we don't want them around us. So we're
right,
going to take this little parcel, and instead of having space, we're going to go up. So hence public housing.
right,
When it's
right.
been proven that people should not live like, sardines trapped like that, it
Yeah,
leads to
yeah, yeah.
violence. It leads to craziness. Yeah,
Right, right. So yeah, Miami Kingpins is an incredible series. It's on Netflix, right?
it's on Amazon Prime and Tubi
Amazon
right now.
Prime.
Yeah,
It's on Amazon Prime. Sorry about saying the wrong thing.
no problem.
Um, and everybody can see it. And it's such a wonderful historic document of a time and a flavor of, Miami and the culture. And
Indeed.
so what's coming next for you, Peter? What are you gonna
Oh boy,
or
we,
what are
we,
you
we
working
got a
on now, or what do you
we
have
got a
to?
whole we got a whole lot going on now. My NiteCap series is back. My interview series on my studio. I spend 2 weeks, half the month here and half the month in Miami. But we're actually starting to work on a sequel to the Kingpins. So it's three. I can't say who are going to be the next
Right.
installment, but it's a blessing that it's become like a hit, a cult hit, and
Right.
it's a blessing for me, Joanne. I want to make sure that we keep connecting with the schools because for me, like I said earlier, I know there's artists who they care about their red carpet treatment. For me, my work is educational, and my work has to have a purpose, and that
Hmm.
purpose is social change.
Yes.
So I enjoy going to the different universities and engaging on this issue. Basically, what led to the Miami Kingpins and how we need to clean it up. So actually, I'm working with Junior, some of the kids of the Kingpins,
Aha,
on
right.
a new series, and some because to me, people, Peter just he's too deep. My favorite part of the film is the family aspect.
Yes,
What this
yes,
did to the kids.
yes.
And so I've gotten very close with a lot of the kids of the Kingpins. So we're working on another series featuring them.
Interesting. I am a big true crime fan,
Ah,
and I
me
tell
too.
people
Me
a
too.
lot about
Me
this
too.
series. It might be on Hulu called Evil Lives Here.
Okay, I'm gonna check it
And
out.
it's about murderers and serial killers and all of that, but the story is told through the eyes of a family member.
Uh-huh.
And so probably 50% of the shows, it'll be a husband or a wife, but many of them are either parents or children of.
Interesting.
And it's one of the most powerful series I've ever seen. And
Interesting.
probably about half the people who are interviewed are still carrying um, what that murderer and their family,
The
did.
scars. Oh,
The
you don't
scar.
recover from that. Yeah, you don't
No,
recover.
and they're also in serious denial. And then
Mm,
there are other ones who saw it from when they were kids. They saw it
interesting.
from the beginning. They saw what the problem was, but
Interesting.
there are others who were like, well, and then when he got out of prison, I was like, well, come and live with me, and and they just couldn't, they could never see the reality, but it's fascinating. And so when I met you at the event and heard from one of the sons of one of the Kingpins, that to me was also absolutely amazing to hear his
Thank you.
story of survival in
Indeed.
in that whole culture, that whole piece. That was really
Indeed.
interesting. I'd never seen that before.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very important to me. Because once again, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I am tired of the caricatures of our community. You know,
Yeah,
when when stories come from a certain community, it's always a caricature.
yeah,
You know, and we try to. I think that is what demonizes the world. When you paint someone as something, a label, you give it a stereotype, and that's what leads to prejudice, and that's what leads to people not caring. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, it's so wonderful talking to you because sometimes I'll be talking about how, the power of storytelling.
Hey, it's the greatest. I mean, life is a story, though. I mean,
Yeah,
Joy, when we're dead and gone, and somebody plays this, people are gonna remember us for this. So
right.
I'm very keen on. I think about these things. You know, I very
Yes,
much think about leaving a blueprint. You
yes,
know, it's very important to me. Very.
yes. Leaving a story of resilience and
Yes.
of hope and being that voice that somebody said to you, well, you're a really good writer, being that voice.
Yeah, at the time, like I said, I was writing to survive. I was writing because I didn't like to see what's going on in my neighborhood, and that was my way of therapy. And it just became my art. It became my God-given thing. And it sounds cheesy, but I tell people this all the time. If you're blessed or lucky enough to figure out your purpose, because you all have a purpose, it's like no other. And
Yeah.
someone asked, well, Peter, how do you know you're in your purpose? Because the path opens. It just
Mm,
opens. I told a kid the other day that wants to be a musician, right? People need to know the difference between their calling and their passion. It's a difference.
uh-huh.
It's a difference. Man, I can't make it. I can't because you're so hung up on this passion. Now, if your passion is your calling, oh, you lucked out. But some of us have a calling that it tugs at us. And unless you fulfill that calling, your life will be misery.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
if you were born for an assignment
that's
and you're
right.
not fulfilling the assignment, so
Yeah,
I know this is my assignment because the path just keeps opening on its own. I don't.
yeah,
There was a time in my career I had to fight to chop the trees down to get to the clearing. You're gonna reach that, but when you're in your zone, when you're in your God-given rite of passage, because it's God. I, I
it
don't
is
look
God.
money.
Yeah,
It's God. It's the universe. I
yeah,
can't fight that. So
yes.
when that path starts to clear, a lot of problems with people, Joanne. Most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, we had that moment when, this is what we're supposed to be doing, but we
Yes,
chose something else. Whether
yes,
it's complacency, love, but once that path starts to clear, just follow the path. And
yeah.
you're onto something great when you really don't understand fully what you're doing anymore. When control is gone. So yeah.
Um, uh, do I have, well, thank you so much, Peter, for this time. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
I look forward to continuing our conversation and seeing more of your work.
Please.
It's just been fabulous having you as my guest. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
man. Thank
And
you.
thank you, Emily, for taking care of us. And yeah, like and subscribe to the Filmmaker Success channel. My name is Joanne Butcher, and come and help me help you make your film.
Indeed. Indeed. Indeed.
Take care, Peter. Thank you so much.